Welcome everybody to the show today. Stacking Surfer here, back with Andy Schectman, the CEO of Miles Franklin. And Andy, we're excited to have you here again. I know it seems like every week we come on here, there's something new about silver, something new about gold that's going on. And we've got a lot of news coming up with BRICS here pretty soon in 2 weeks.
Yeah, not even. Yeah, 2 weeks. You're right. 13 to what? Not even next week. I think it's the 22nd.
Or is it next week? It is. Yeah, it is next week. You're right. Sorry, I got something in my throat here. But what I'd love to do, Andy, is, with everybody that's here, that we've been leaving a lot of people have been leaving a lot of great questions. At the end of this, I definitely want to hit some of those great questions. But what I wanted to start off with is we continue to hear, and we talk about this on the show, that silver is way undervalued today. We talk about catalysts that could change that price moving forward. But one of the things that I wanted to hit and make sure we hit today, and it's the thumbnail that I put out there, is silver being in a 1-to-7 ratio as it comes out of the ground with gold. So to start off with, I'd love to get your ideas and feedback and thoughts around what's the possibility of something like that happening?
I mean, well, look, when you talk about a price ratio at 85 to 1 and a mining ratio at 7 to 1, that in and of itself is bad enough, right? I mean, that in and of itself says, well, something's really wrong, and maybe it doesn't have to get 1 to 1 with its mining ratio, but it's got to get a whole hell of a lot closer than 11 times away from it. But when you put it into the context, for example, of a 1.1 billion ounce deficit versus supply versus demand over the last 6 years, another 265 million ounce deficit this year, and doesn't even include the military applications that mysteriously have been omitted from the Silver Institute's numbers. When you realize that the M2 money supply is up 14 times since 1980, and silver is selling at a 40% discount to its 1980 high, when you realize that there are 2.9 billion ounces of silver traded on the LBMA every day, which is 3.5 times annual global mine supply. When you realize that these bullion banks that are as stupid as a mud wall are short to the tune of 4 to 6 billion ounces that supposedly are available for delivery, those contracts that they sell on the LBMA over the counter market, which isn't an exchange where there's some entity that can come in and save the day. This is a 1-to-1 deal. And all the people who have the other side of that trade think that they can stand for delivery. Doesn't mean they will, but they could. And if they do, that means there's 4 to 6 billion ounces of silver that could actually stand. And the reason that it's not for sure how many there is that it's a much more opaque market. It's a 1-to-1 market instead of an exchange like the COMEX. And so it's a lot more less transparent, if you will, than the COMEX is. But all of these people could stand for delivery, and yet there's only 300 million ounces available that is not already accounted for at the LBMA. We don't even know how much of that is really for sale. What if everyone stands for delivery? And so when you talk about this scenario where we see continual deficits, we see massive naked shorting, and we see the smart entities in the global south draining the exchanges, where 8.1% of the float, the available 300 million ounces, was delivered in August. Where is it going to? Who's buying it? And so we are entering a period of time where it's accelerating, and the countries around the globe that are buying silver understand that. This is why I made such a big deal about China flying around Latin America buying unrefined silver in the form of bars and and concentrate, which is the byproduct sludge, and the unrefined silver bars, the doré bars that are crudely refined by the miners who then send it to the refiners. Well, China says, I'll just pay you double and take it right off your hand, and I'll ship it to China and refine it myself. Well, they're already the largest or second largest producer of silver in the world. And if I had to bet, they're probably the largest. They just don't tell us how much they mine. And so we are entering a period of time where I think price discovery will ultimately be forced upon the world through some form of a issue where a failed delivery on the LBMA, which could, catalyze a massive spike in the price of silver, or something like COMEX, which is a rules-based exchange, where it's written into the rules that if in the interest of the exchange, we can basically say you can't get delivery, and we're just going to cash settle you. Well, that's a default. So could that happen? Yeah, why not? We're seeing all of these things progress and accelerate, and we're seeing countries accelerate their acquisition of silver. We see Russia being the first nation to openly admit it will be part of their state fund, and are dedicating money to accumulate not just gold, which the number that they talked about in gold, let me see if I have it. It's quite startling. I don't know if I have it, but they talked about, maybe I do. Let me just look real quick. They talked about buying, oh gosh, they dedicated, what is the number? Here it is. Russian finance ministry has announced plans to exponentially increase its gold purchases, raising the daily acquisition from 1.12 billion rubles to 8.2 billion rubles for the next month. So, that's not just gold. They're doing it now with silver and with platinum and palladium, but they're making it part of a state-backed admission. Well, India, who's bought about 800 million ounces in the last 3 years, it's not openly discussed and admitted, but they have. You can see from the import-export numbers exactly what they're doing. That's more than is on the LBMA in total, of which 500 of those 800 million on the LBMA belongs to the ETFs. In terms of COMEX, I mean, that's way more. So these countries are buying silver, they're accumulating it. We see a structural deficit year over year over year, 1.2 billion ounce shortfall over 6 years, omitting the military side of the equation, naked shorting to the point of 3.5 times global annual mine supply every single day. This will end badly. It will end very poorly, and it will be one of these deals where you'll wake up and say, "My God, what just happened with silver?" So yeah, I don't know when that happens, but I think you have to, have strong fingertips, and you have to trust your intuition and your gut and the mathematics of it. That ultimately this is a game that cannot continue to go on, and I think the commercial banks are trapped and scared, and they understand this. They understand that, like, if they try to cover on COMEX, it just pushes up the price on the LBMA. Every dollar increase in the price of silver is a $4 to $6 billion loss on those banks' balance sheets. At what point do they continue to short so that more people say, okay, we'll stand for delivery at these stupid prices? And then when do we get that ultimate default, which then pushes the price to the moon as everyone tries to cover, or it just blows up the system? So ultimately, we probably progress towards a more realistic ratio between price and mine supply, or in the ground mining ratio. At this point, I look at it as probably the greatest value I've ever seen ever in my career, from a standpoint of what's called asymmetrical risk reward. What has the greatest upside and the lowest downside? It's silver. I mean, doesn't mean it's going to play out when we think it will or how we think it will, but ultimately and mathematically and logically, it just seems like a slam dunk. If, for those of you that are golfers, it seems like a 2-foot putt. Your buddies may not give it to you. If it's inside a foot, maybe that's a gimme. 2-foot putt, you'll make 9 out of 10 times, but it's as close to a sure thing as I've ever seen in my career. How it plays out, still yet to be determined, but I like the odds for sure.
I think that's awesome. Thanks, Andy. It's interesting because with the ratio, you can have gold go down, but gold shows no signs of weakness. It only shows signs of a massive cup and handle of going up. So, I see, like you're saying, I think we are going to see that day where all of a sudden gold continues to be strong, continues to move up, and that ratio snaps. And all of a sudden,
look at the cup and handle in silver, man.
It's huge.
The 40-year cup and handle in silver is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, look at the cup and handle formation in silver. If you pull up a chart, it's enormous, and it's about 40 years long, which means it's very mature. And for those people who don't know technical analysis, it's one of the most bullish technical indicators of all time. So you see the cup and handle formation in both gold and silver, maybe even stronger in silver. And again, the only reason these countries aren't bitching is because they're the ones buying it. They're the ones knowing they've got the West over a barrel. You do not need to send, cruise missiles into the U.S. to fight the U.S. to beat them. You just need to beat them at their own game in a lawful manner, and that stand for delivering all the world's commodities. And that's what they're doing. And they're beating us because of our own stupidity, which is suppressing a market that no one ever stood for delivery. They are now, and that's how you win a game that is transitioning from opaque debt promises to commodity-backed ecosystem, which we certainly are, it seems like. So that'll all change when there is a non-delivery event, or there is a cash settlement event, or something that triggers the rest of the world to understand that price discovery on the West is a joke. And you look, for example, look at the difference between COMEX, which is rehypothecated 15, 16, 1700%, meaning 17 people all think they own the same, all have a contract and think they have claim to it. But if one person says, give it to me, and gets it, what happens to the other 16? Well, that's cash settled. But you look at the Shanghai Metals Exchange as an example. In order to trade a bar on the Shanghai Metals Exchange, you have to first buy a bar from one of the 6 or 7 pre-approved refineries who will give you that bar, and then they laser inscribe a serial number on it that is associated with the contract. And that inspires confidence and credibility. We don't have anything like that on COMEX. It's just completely, totally sold over and over and over and over and over again, because most of the people don't stand for delivery. So we'll cash settle if we're Bank of America or JP Morgan or whatever, and no one will ever know until people say, give it to me. And that's what happened to Bernie Madoff. Same thing. It's a Ponzi scheme until it's a business, until it is discovered as a Ponzi scheme. And, me screaming and others like me screaming about this only does so good, because, maybe the people who are standing for delivery understand it, but if really the people in this country understood it, it represents an opportunity of a generation to buy an asset that is being accumulated at levels people I don't think quite comprehend, because it's being masked by the inability to get real price discovery by this rehypothecation and this naked shorting in London that is for a very long time obliterated price discovery and the real value found inherently in this stuff. It's not lost on India or China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or the other countries who are using it against us, but it really truly is, in my book, in my mind, an opportunity of a generation, one that you will not find very often. Look at the fundamentals: price, demand, supply, lack of supply, errors in reporting of supply, rehypothecation, massive naked shorting, all of this stuff, and accumulation by half the world using that against us. This is a rare opportunity. Either you take it or you think I'm talking my book. That's up to you. But I'll just simply tell you, I've never seen anything like it. I think it's a bet that I would be willing to take if you have a time horizon that's not too long down the road, but markets can stay irrational longer than we can stay solvent. That's true. In the end, mathematics will win this. This is all about math. It's all about logic. It's all about economics. And in the end, that will all prevail. Don't know how it plays out or what triggers it, but I'd be comfortable taking that bet.
Me too. I'm very comfortable doing that. So I've definitely been adding to my silver position this year. So Andy, just a couple quick things to throw out real quick to everybody. One, if you have a question for Andy, we will be taking questions at the end. Please type in all caps so it's easier for us to find it, for my mods to tag it too. Just put that in the comment. If you haven't done so already, hit that thumbs up. And that will just wake up the algorithm so more people see this. And then also hit subscribe and the bell icon if you haven't done so. That way you don't miss our weekly chats. And then mods, if you could put in also Andy's channel. He goes live tonight. What time do you go live, Andy?
8 o'clock tonight.
Okay, 8 o'clock Eastern.
And I have some amazing. So I'm doing the live stream every Tuesday night with Kevin. I call him Tattoo, and then I'm doing. I have some amazing guests coming on very soon that are what I'm going to try to do is talk more about what makes these people tick and how they got to where they are. Ian Eagle is a good example, the voice of the NCAA and the NBA, and his son Noah. They're amazing guys, and how'd they get to where they are? How did Ian get to where he is? What makes him tick? How did he get so successful? What was his big break? But other thing, Johnny Bravo, really cool guy that I think is incredibly smart and incredibly entertaining and has a very diverse background, and all sorts of people from all walks I'm having on as guests. That will be 2 or 3 of those a week too. So don't think I don't want to still come on your show. I just am basically dedicating myself right now to doing as many of these as I can, getting the information out, sharing what I've learned from others and the research I do, because this is we are at that stage, man. We're at that place right now where it's the Rubicon. I mean, the biggest election of our lifetime. What happens either way? The BRICS meeting, and the acceleration of events that seem to be, time seems to be quickening, if you will, the great quickening, where there's just more and more and more and more. What does it mean? And it's my ambition to do the best I can to contribute to this country the best I can. And I'm not trying to overstate my role in anything, simply to say I'm trying to do my part. And if more people did their part, it'd probably be a better country. And so anyways, I appreciate you saying that very much. I really do. And I know you've been there and texted me after, and it's not easy for me to be on the other side, but it's something that I want to do in conjunction with coming on shows like yours. And you're amazing at what you do. And it's really, it's an honor to be here, but just because I'm doing my own, don't think I don't want to continue to be here with you and others. I do. It's just my thing now, I guess.
We love it. And I mean, you can see from the people that are on here and then come on your show tonight too. It's a good message, right? There's very few detractors to some of this. And it's usually people that are pretty disgruntled about holding it for a long period of time.
Well, I have Jake's Custom Part on as well. He and I have been emailing back and forth about doing that. And he's a good example of someone who, just a normal guy who understands it. How did he get to understand it? What made him get there? What does he think is happening? And it doesn't have to come from someone who's known on YouTube. And of course, if you watch enough of these videos, just about everyone knows who Jake's Custom Parts is. But I'd like to have you on too. It's about the humanization of this movement, of people who in their own way are pushing back against what's happening in this country, to our currency, to our culture. Do it as respectfully as possible, and know that, we all can contribute into information, because if all we do is rely upon the mainstream, even those that consider themselves well-read are reading the wrong stuff, being led down a wrong path, and one that could very quickly turn scary. And I think, something like a BRICS common settlement currency, if it is issued, doesn't have to be this week, could be next year in Brazil, who knows? But the genie's out of the bottle. And I think it's just important to try and get that information out best I can. And fortunately, I have some friends who are well-known enough in their own area that I can broaden the reach. And that's kind of what I'm doing. And so tonight is a Q&A, but 2 or 3 interviews with some pretty well-known people this week and every week. And I'd like to add you to that list as well. And let's just keep doing our part best we can, be a better world for kids we have and for all of us.
I love that. So yeah, count me in. I would definitely be interested in doing that and love to share my opinion and thoughts and kind of what got me started.
In your history, man, how'd you get here? What makes you tick? Your family was in banking. How did that shape things? All of these questions are important when people are listening to you. Richard Russell, my mentor, I read him every day for 20 years. God rest his soul. Every day he would write. And the things I love the best about him is when he would talk about his experience as being a bombardier in World War II, flying over Germany, or his cactuses that he loved so much, or his standard poodles. Or I wanted to know the guy that I was trusting with so much of my belief structure. And so I think people would say the same thing about you. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. I'm not going to ask you so much about the world, more along the lines of the way you look at the world. And that's kind of what I'm going to try to do with this podcast.
I think it's awesome. I think it's a great way. We'll put a quick note in for your company as well. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, Andy, how's the best way for them to reach you?
It's still info@Miles Franklin. Put an email in there. Stacking Surfer sent me. You want our price list that is as competitive or more so than anyone in the country? Ask for it, no obligation. You have questions, ask for it, put your phone number in there. If you do and you don't get an email, check your spam. A lot of times when people get emails from corporate entities or corporate email servers, regardless of what that corporation does, they get sent into spam or to junk mail. We are very diligent about following up. Put your phone number down if you have questions or you want to be contacted. And if you just want the price list, which will be very special, not published on our website, let us know. info@milesfranklin.com. Stacking Surfer sent me. And we would be honored to chat with your people, of course.
Thank you, Andy, for that. So, and you guys hit that thumbs up again if you haven't done so yet. We'll do some surprise giveaway at the end here if we're able to get over 100, and I think we're already there. So we'll do something fun at the end here. So I am going to bring one question up to kind of direct us a little bit on our chat here. The rest of them we'll start to get towards at the end here, but I do want to pull this in because we just kind of talked about that. So first off, Sugar Prospecting, thank you for the super chat. Andy, what's your thoughts on what will happen with gold if BRICS does not announce the rollout of its unit versus if they do? Major gold pullback?
No.
Kind of alluded to this a second ago, but.
No, I don't think there'll be a pull. Maybe, gold is being managed. And I think that suits the BRICS countries just fine. When you have the former president of Brazil and the head of the BRICS New Development Bank say in principle, we've agreed to this, well, that's a huge step. When you see the gold that is being accumulated by these countries and repatriated at the same time, that's a big clue. A lot of people were disenchanted, if you will, by the fact that these things didn't happen last year in Africa during the BRICS summit in Johannesburg. And James Rickard, who I had the good fortune of sitting and having drinks with in July, a month before the meeting in August of last year. And we talked about this. And he said things that I'd been saying for 3 years, that said to me, look, I think the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union will be announced at the Johannesburg meeting. He was wrong. But what did we see subsequently? The president of Belarus, one of the only European countries, wants to join the BRICS, said we need to have a summit to bring these two organizations into the BRICS fold. It will happen. Didn't happen, but it will. He said that they will issue a common settlement currency. It didn't happen, but what did they say? Let's all trade in local currencies, which they've been doing, and then we will discuss a common settlement currency at the meeting in Russia. Well, what have we seen? That's what we've seen. And what is the whole premise of Enbridge? To trade in local currencies, CBDCs, with a common settlement currency called the unit. So the progression is being made, whether or not it's announced. And this is the problem with most Americans, is that instant gratification is not fast enough. That plays right into the hands of the methodical, like the BRICS, who are using that. If that knee-jerk reaction is for gold to sell off, thank you, they would say, that's fantastic. Let's just stand for deliveries for some more. Let's buy up more until it happens. And when you see the former president of Brazil, the head of the New Development Bank, say this stuff, when you see all of the things that we're seeing in terms of accumulation and repatriation, it's coming. When you realize the fact that 99% of, if you take the world's GDP, all of it, and the countries that comprise 99% of it, every one of them has a CBDC in development or already in operation. That's coming. And what is the whole premise of Enbridge? To trade CBDCs in a way that SWIFT can't intervene. Who are the members? Well, you got the original 4, plus you got the BIS, and now you have Saudi Arabia as a full member of Enbridge. Dollars are not compatible with Enbridge. The road is being paved with this in mind. And if people get distracted or think it's a nothing burger or think that this is just, they're not, it's that phrase I use all the time, little by little, then all at once. The little by little is the hardest part for people to deal with because it doesn't provide the feedback that they think it should. And this is the whole issue with Americans of get rich quick. Again, instant gratification, not quick enough, ignoring value and moving to gambling. And that's why the Vegas continues to grow. And that's why, you see the rise of cryptocurrencies, which maybe only a handful are legit and the rest of them are shit. And yet how many people just load into these tokens that are worth nothing. Yes, some have gotten very rich, others have gotten hammered because they would rather do that than put in the time to do it and to work methodically and to do this stuff. Well, that's the same thing here. If you're expecting this, set your expectations and say that the genie's out of the bottle. This is the way they're moving. Is it in their best interest to announce it? Maybe, maybe not. Are they going to announce it? Maybe, maybe not. But the fact that we see more and more and more progression and announcements along the way from very high-ranking people, including the head of the new development bank, who was the president of Brazil, this is not a small fry. And I think ultimately it's where we're heading. Is it going to be announced? Don't know. But I think there will be some clarity, just like there was some clarity out of Africa. Next year it's in Brazil. Maybe they announce it then. I don't know. But I do think that that is not the proper way to look at it. Realize it, that it's a trend in motion, and best to be able to prepare. Give yourself as much time as possible to get out of the way of it and to prepare for it and actually not only survive this change, but maybe even thrive. That's a possibility if you see it for what it is and realize that it doesn't need to be announced, because you already know more than everyone else does. And you know in your heart it's moving in this direction. It sure seems that way anyway. So I don't know what to expect other than to say a little bit more clarity. And let's hope that they don't make that announcement, because if they do, that's that all at once moment where immediately people start dumping dollars. That's Project Sandman. That's the night of the switch where bang, every country now has just been told, now we're not going to take, really, we don't want dollars anymore. We want the new unit settlement token, and local currencies of the BRICS nations, and going to comprise a whole lot more of energy and commodity sales. Just like that, the dollar gets kneecapped. Is that going to happen? Don't know. Probably not. Maybe some form of it. I would rather just take a more holistic view and say that you can see this is where we're heading. Ultimately, whether it's acknowledged this week or not, next week or not, it isn't really the issue as much as it is seeing the crumbs that are leading to a certain place, and trust your gut or not. That's the way I would look at it.
I'm not ready for it yet, Andy. So
no, I'm not ready for it either, man. I got 3 kids. I got a kid who's 17 who's getting, college letters right now, and I want her to grow up in a world that has opportunity. I'm not ready for it, but ultimately that doesn't matter. The world waits not for you or me, keeps on going. And when you realize we've squandered the good graces of our foreign creditors, when you realize we're destroying the value of the dollar, we're destabilizing the treasury market, we've already turned our country woke, we've destroyed the immigration system, the electoral system, the judicial system, and whether or not you all view that, much of the world does think that. That's enough. Perception is reality. What is your reality? Don't know. That's bad enough. We're moving in a direction that's changing. And first it was the Dutch, and then it was, and then the Dutch gave way to the British. The British gave way to the US. Who do we give way to? Are we giving away? Even Vance, Trump's running mate, says maybe being the world reserve currency isn't such a good idea. That's the same thing Jared Bernstein said. Are we moving in that direction? Weaponizing the market, inflating, stabilizing? Don't know. It just seems that way, that everything comes to an end. Every system comes to an end. And at the end of a long-reaching macro trend, people have recency bias that can be very destructive in the end. And have an open mind and take a step back and look at the facts. And, Gibson's paradox talks about, well, forget about Gibson's. I won't go down that road, but let's talk about Occam's razor. And let's just simply say, what is the most logical outcome? That's what Occam's razor says. Pick the most logical outcome. What is it? You look at all the things that have happened and the reaction to all the things that have happened globally, and it tells me that we're at the foot of a change. It doesn't need to be announced completely and totally next week, but I know a lot of people will be discouraged if it's not, but be careful what you wish for.
I love that, Andy. So another question I have for you too, that has come up in a few questions from people, and we hit this a few weeks ago, but I forgot your answer already. I'll have to go back and look, but I want to ask you here, maybe you can clarify it, is military use. We've talked about silver in the past of being as much as, a monster box worth of silver and a Tomahawk missile. There's a lot of other weapons that are used for war. I've started to hear the conversations just briefly coming up around potentially Taiwan having some conflict again. I think that's much more probable if it looks like Trump's winning. I could see them trying to sneak that in. If Harris wins, I think maybe they postpone some kind of an action along those lines. That's just my opinion. And then we have Israel. There's, Israel and Iran. We could have a major conflict that happens here pretty soon, to where, we're having to use more silver within military use. So I know, and then we've got solar panels and other things that are going up with that too. But as far as the military front, is there some more information you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, I would tell people to go to silverwars.org.
Okay.
That's John Little from the Pickaxe, silverwars.org, and you'll have all the information. He's an amazing researcher. And I have emails that I'll send you personally,
Okay.
from people who work for the military and the DoD who confirm everything I say. And I mean, I could read some of them to you, which it would just be too much. But there are people that are confirming everything that I'm saying. Look, we have a 265 million ounce shortfall in silver, 1.2 billion ounces over the last 6 years, and it all omits military. Yet there is silver used in all of these military applications, and it's ironic that it's omitted, and maybe that's the reason. If you realize, when you realize that Biden's disappeared for the last month, who's been running the country? The people pulling the strings behind the throne of the White House is probably the military industrial complex, and with all of the wars that they fund or are part of or playing both sides of. I mean, you need silver to make high-tech weaponry. Is that why you have 8 banks who hold the largest short position in the history of COMEX of any commodity traded? It's in silver, this tiny little market of silver. Why are 8 commercial banks that short? Why are they trading 3.5 times global annual mine supply every day in London? These Western banks. Why? And it's all on the short side. Why are they stepping on it? Why is silver so important? And ask yourself and work backwards from there. And that's the important thing. People just look at the price and don't look at the why. The why is, why the hell would you do it in silver? Why not do it in a bigger market? You can control, but if, it's just too conspicuous to not be noticed, but yet it doesn't get enough attention, except the Wall Street Journal comes out. If silver is such an inconsequential small market, why do they come out and write a report which doesn't really give the facts and saying, it's not such a big deal, this short position and this deficit, because there's enough silver in the vaults in the LBMA and the COMEX to take care of it for an extended period of time. But they don't mention the fact that the 800 million ounces in London, of which 500 million already belong to the ETFs. So that leaves 300 million. How much of that is owned by others or COMEX? The registered category. How much of the registered category it could be delivered, but my clients who hold it in registered category, we have 9 Brics locations, of which one is New York City, which is a COMEX depository. I have people with 2 million ounces in their personal account and 1,000-ounce bars in that vault. Well, that's in the eligible category. It doesn't mean they're selling it. Registered means that they're for sale. So the silver that they're saying are in the vaults is not for sale, and maybe at any level or maybe a much higher level. But why even report about it if it's such an inconsequential market? Silver is much more important than we are led on to believe, and it's massively needed in things like military, which seems to be the people pulling the strings. So, I mean, again, this is why you're seeing these countries use the Western price to stand for delivery. This is why you see China, which is the number 1 or 2 largest producer in the world. They're listed as the number 2. Wouldn't surprise me if they're number 1. They don't tell us how much they mine. But this is why they're going around the world buying unrefined silver in doré and concentrate, paying double what the West will and shipping it home. It's a whole hell of a lot more important than we're led on to believe. It's strategic. It's not industrial. And the sooner people understand that, it makes sense why you have 8 Western banks, all of them West, suppressing the price of silver to the largest degree of any commodity ever traded, ever, on COMEX. Why? Because it's needed. And if silver were to reflect its real price, you couldn't wage the wars that they want to fund and want to finance and want to create weapons to use for both sides, it's enriching them, and this is their meal ticket. Well, if silver was what it should be, and everyone was accumulating it to that degree, wouldn't be as easily said. Would be much more easily said than done. I'll put it to that way.
Well, maybe one of these days we can get the silver price so high that it doesn't make sense to wage war. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense to wage war for lots of reasons, and unfortunately, these people, in my estimation, of course, there's no. I mean, in my opinion, there's enough proof to say it, but to profit using human suffering to that degree, and the threat of it is disgusting. But it is what it is, and we can't change it. But we can take advantage of it and understand what it is, and do the best you can for your family. Be sympathetic to the reality of it, but understand that it's a distortion created through manipulation, and those distortions always end badly. You cannot continue to suppress a market or manipulate a market by holding it against the primary trend. Primary trend will overwhelm it, and this is what we're slowly beginning to see. And that's, these countries understand this is the way to win the war, by using this against us rather than getting into a hot war. And when you need silver for so many things moving forward, it really puts us at a disadvantage globally once the dust settles.
Well, I just saw Elon Musk, for those of you that haven't been following, but I don't know how you couldn't be at this point. He just announced a new Tesla vehicle that's a two-seater that's basically has no steering wheel in it, has no foot pedals in it. There's no way to control it. It's completely self-controlled, and it's basically a robo-taxi. People are going to be able to buy those. Guarantee you there's silver in those things. And then he announced his new robot. I think it's Optimus, if I remember the name right, but I might be wrong. That's going to have silver in it too. And then he's got another vehicle, looks like some kind of a minivan, that is going to have silver in it as well. So, we're seeing so many uses for silver, and it continues to increase. Samsung announced a new way of doing solar panels that's going to be taking up a lot more silver to do, and it's way more efficient.
They also have the solid state battery for vehicles.
Solid state battery that's coming out. Maybe that's what I meant. It's solid state battery. So there's a lot of things that are going to be changing there, that there's going to be more demand for silver. And so, it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. What I wanted to do, Andy, if you have anything else you wanted to definitely hit today, we can do that. Otherwise,
I'll be happy to take. I'm happy to take the questions. Let's do that.
Let's do it. We got a lot of good questions in here. Okay, I'm gonna bring one of my friends up here real fast, and we will get to your guys' questions that have asked it here. I've got it there too. We understand silver is not at what it should be, where it's at right now. My question was, or will it ever be at a price it should be? Given, okay, the price it shouldn't be doesn't help my silver holdings, only spot does.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, it will. Yes, ultimately it will, and may not happen in the way that you think, but ultimately I do believe that it will reach levels that we've all expected it to. It's reaching a point right now where the world is recognizing what the West is doing. And when you see 8.1% of the silver delivered off of the LBMA in the month of August, it's getting to the point where it's becoming harder and harder to hold it back. You got these banks trapped. They're completely and totally trapped. And I think they understand that. And they're doing all they can to continue to short the price. But look, every $1 increase in the price of silver is a $4 to $6 billion loss on these banks' balance sheets. But if you continue to stand for delivery, as these countries are doing, ultimately it leads to a point of either you have to come up with the silver or you default, and a default blows up the system immediately. And so, yes, I think price discovery will then move to the east, to the countries who understand what it truly is worth. Ultimately, price will accentuate itself just the way that gold has. And silver and gold have a 90% correlation throughout all of history. Usually gold leads the way. It has this time. But if you look at, silver over the course of this year, if I'm not mistaken, let's look and see real quick. It's doing a whole lot better. Hang on one second. it might be leading the entire precious metals complex. It's up 32.95% since the beginning of the year, right? So, I mean, is that a bust? Is that bad? It's up 32%. And yet people still are, upset about it. I get it. It should be a whole hell of a lot higher, but that isn't so bad since the beginning of the year. And, I mean, you go back to the beginning of the century. What was silver year 2000? Probably about $7 or something. It was $4.95 an ounce. Well, in 25 years, it's gone up what, 8 or 9 fold. That's on pace with the S&P 500. That is way better than the 10-year Treasury. Yeah, it's not cryptocurrency, but this is in a suppressed market. Let go of the suppression and watch what happens. So it's holding its own. Someone in there said it was a bust since late 2021. Well, go back and see what silver was in March of 2020. What was silver in March of 2020? What is it? It was 1174. Okay, so it's up 300% since March of 2020. So, I mean, how bad has it been? Yeah, it should be a whole hell of a lot higher, and I think that's part of the realization that these banks know that, they can't really keep it down. They can do the best they can to mitigate it. But the more they make it short, the more dangerous it becomes and the more probable and likely that we see a blow off. So, again, this is the counterintuitive part. This is the frustrating part. This is the part where emotion takes over. And that's why there's an entire school of investment ideology that's wave theory. It's all about human emotion. Screw it, I'm out, pissed off, dump it. Great, we'll take it. And at some point, the emotions move to the other side. And I just think that it will exceed people's expectations, but maybe not when or how. Maybe it will. But the counterintuitive nature of this market, it hurts a lot of people's psyche. I get that. It's difficult. I've been at it for 35 years, so I can deal with it a little bit better than most because I've seen it so much. But if you take a step back and look at a chart, you put that chart on the wall and get real close to it, it's like ding, 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 drive you crazy. You take a step back to the end of the room and look at it, and it's slowly sloping upwards at a 45-degree angle. Have a proper perspective.
I agree with that too, guys. I think you definitely need to have the correct perspective with it, but it's coming. I know a lot of people are losing faith in the timing of things, but we are seeing more of that happening. And the other thing I'll just throw out, and I mentioned this the other day, Andy, too. I'm in the process of putting some videos together around just how to get some basic food storage and water storage for you guys too, because it's also good to have that just in case things get kind of hairy with.
Well, I'll tell you, and living here in Florida, I learned that lesson just by going into the grocery store. And, in Delray Beach, where I live, we were missed completely and totally. And we were told that was going to be the case. I mean, we had 50-mile-an-hour winds, not even any rain. It was nothing. And we knew that. And yet 3 days before, as they're saying, we're going to, we might have some heavy winds and whatnot, but we're not in the path. I went, and look, I'm from Minnesota, right? I've lived there for 50 years and I've lived here for a couple of years. And I went into the grocery store, and there's Publix grocery stores on every corner in this state. And there was no water, no milk, no eggs, nothing. I mean, and it blew my mind. And we weren't even in direct path. So I couldn't get a quarter mile from Costco. So, I tried, and I'm like, wow, that's funny. Let's go to the grocery store, because we were already prepared with food and water, but I wanted to get some more stuff. And that's emblematic, if you will, for, I think, if you're not prepared, just how fast things can empty out in any respect, whether it be financially or, in this case, provisions, food, water. It's huge. It's really important. And worst case scenario, you dedicate that or donate that food to a food shelf or whatnot. But being prepared, I think, is huge in this environment.
Yeah, I think it's just another way to get prepared, guys, for things too. And so, stacking's a good way to do it. Having some emergency food and water is good too. So, Andy, another question for you here is, this is kind of just general. You may have a couple that you are your favorites, but there's two different things here, I think, to kind of peel out of this question. So this is from Tenarg, I think, the clown, if I'm saying that right. Are silver mining stocks worth investing in? What I would add to that too, Andy, is why are the silver mining stocks not keeping up with silver? And even when the gold mining stocks seem to still be lagging quite a bit behind the precious metals that are going up physically.
It usually goes the other way around. It's usually the shares that lead the metal. So yeah, when you talk about value in the market, look, when in 1929, when the market crashed in the Great Depression, Homestake Mining was the #1 performing stock of the entire stock exchange. Yes, they are. And I think you put them in proper context. It should, never confuse mining shares with physical metal. But I think from a standpoint of, if you look at your assets in the form of a pyramid, the base of your pyramid would be things like paid for real estate, physical cash, physical precious metals. All that's 60-70% of your assets. The top 20% of your pyramid would be utility stocks throwing off a dividend, or treasuries paying 4 or 5%, 6 month or less in duration. The top 10% would be your mining shares, your cryptocurrencies, your home run. And this is the theory the Swiss have used for 300 years. And if you lose everything on the top 10%, all of it gone, and you break even on the middle 20%, as long as you're earning 2, 3, 4% on the base of your pyramid with safety, you don't go backwards. Of course, in a perfect world, you kill it. And I think there is that kind of potential in silver mining shares. They're as wickedly undervalued, and gold, as anything I've ever seen. And also the royalty stocks like Silver Wheaton or Royal Gold, Freeport, not Freeport, Franco Nevada. These royalty stocks are great. And then the actual silver stocks themselves, they're massively undervalued to where silver is, and to the run up, and even more so in gold. Yeah. That would be great. You kill it, you make your 4 or 5% on the middle portion, and you do just fine on the bottom. That's how you're not risking or inverting your pyramid and risking the bulk of your wealth to speculation. But I do think that everyone should have some, and a 10% allocation from your asset base, your investable asset base, into mining shares could really, really, really pay off when the mining shares, which have been beaten down. And look, when you talk about silver, there's only a handful of silver companies that mine silver. Like 25 or 30% of the silver that was mined came from mining companies. The rest came from companies mining gold or copper or other items. So it's a market that also, because the price has been depressed, there's very little in the way of, has been very, very little in the way of exploration. So yeah, I think they offer tremendous potential, very little downside risk. Again, asymmetrical downside risk and upside potential. Definitely, I would own some silver mining shares. The Silver Wheaton. What else do I own? I own AU, which is First Majestic, and my biggest holding is I always forget the name of it. My biggest holding is hang on.
Which means you're a smart man, Andy. You're not watching it every day.
It's for my biggest holding period is, can't believe I can't think of it. I'm looking right now.
Well, Andy's finding that, guys, real quick. I want to see, put a 1 in the chat if you have mining stocks. Put a 2 in the chat.
Pan American Silver is my biggest holding. Pan American.
Pan America, okay. Yep. So I'm curious to see how many people have mining stocks and how many don't. Like Andy was saying, for me personally, it's building the foundation. Like, I make sure I have food and water storage. I live in California. We could have a massive earthquake. It could take a week before the Red Cross gets to me. So I like to have some extra food and water around. As far as financially goes, I like to have a base of gold and silver for my base of savings. I look at gold as great wealth insurance. I look at silver for bartering, as well as upside to where it's going to go, in my opinion. And then I do have mining stocks as well. I've got gold mining stocks. I've got silver mining stocks. That's more of my investment outside of my base. So I do think that's a good one to look at. We've got, lots of people with 1s and 2s in here. Some people with 0s. I don't know what that means. It's a new one, but it looks like we've got about a mix of people that are in there. So I think that was a good question for the group. All right, I got another question for you here, Andy. Let's see. This is, I think, another really good question, because a lot of people are trying to figure out how to adjust their expectations. So David F says, Andy, is 70 the new 50 or 55 as far as the GSR goes? I don't see the GSR in the 50s again. I would add to this too, Andy, that it's the same thing when we're looking at, pricing of where things are at. People keep expecting things are going to go back down to 20 any day for silver. The reality is it looks like 30 is our new floor for silver, at least at this point.
It can't be 70 if it's coming out of the ground at 7-1. You can't have it be that way at 10 times the price of what it's coming, or 1/10 the price of what it's coming out of the ground at in its relation to gold. It just doesn't work that way. Ultimately, when the rubber meets the road, you have to have some form of reality, or arbitrage would blow everything up. So what you have is a period of time where the Western banks have been able to distort the price of silver at a period of time when the dollar was king. Is the dollar going to be king forever? Don't know. Silver's at all-time highs in several currencies right now. The Australian dollar, the African rand, the Russian ruble. It's near just an inch away from all-time highs in the Canadian dollar and in others. So it's the inordinate and unjustified strength of the dollar, its last gasps, that is distorting that. But here again, this is a period of time. You go back through history, it's averaged, over the last 100 years, closer to 42-1 than it has 70 or 50-1. So it is a value of a generation. Do you have what it takes in terms of time and in, grip to hang on and trust your gut? Or if you think 70 is the new 50, then why own silver? Might as well own gold or something else altogether. You have to just understand that the further away you get from historical averages, and in particular, excuse me, in particular, mining ratio, I mean, it's what it is, pulling it out of the ground. At some point, reality has to align with geologic reality. And they've been able to pull it off. For the last 100 years, silver, or the United States, has been the place to be in every respect, and in investment and in growth. What was the need to own something like gold or silver as an investment when you had the greatest amount of prosperity ever seen, largely due to declining interest rates, at least for the last 40 plus years? And those declining interest rates gave great value to stocks and bonds and real estate in an environment where interest rates are going to go higher, because who the hell wants to buy our currency that is being inflated away, or our treasuries that are being destroyed by value through inflation and money creation and weaponization? Rates have to go higher. That's why the Fed lowered the front end of the rates a couple weeks ago. And what's happened to the 10-year treasury? It's gone straight up, over 4% now, because the rest of the world says, no, thank you. We're going to need higher rates to entice us to buy anything of duration. And that will continue to go higher and higher and higher as we continue to have really very irresponsible fiscal policy and brain dead monetary policy. It's coming. But in that environment, again, this is one of these deals where you just have to either see it for what it is, or think that everything goes back to normal. And do you see that happening? If you don't, then I think this is the value of a generation. And I have no problem going on record and saying that. I don't think I've ever seen a better place to park your money if you want to make a profit. I'm not saying that it will happen 100%, but it sure looks to me like it will. And I don't think I've ever seen anything that has the fundamentals of declining footprint geologically. It was 16-1 for 5,000 years. And now it's 7-1. So in terms of what's coming out of the ground, so what's available has been cut in half, by more than half. And it's getting harder and harder to get in a world that needs it more and more and more for digital and green and electronics and electrical and military and all of the things that you need silver for, not going away. And in fact, it's increasing. So this will all happen. You have to have the patience to be able to stick it out, or it's not for you if it drives you crazy. Peace of mind is the most important asset you can own. And that's why I've never sold anyone. I've never told anyone to buy silver to get rich. Yeah, it has that quality. It has that principle. It has that backdrop. It has that potential, but it's wealth, and it has been forever. And either you accept it as that, understand, sure, it has investment qualities, but if you look at it in the form of it's just a better way to hold wealth than in dollars that are being depreciated every day. Then when it does take off, it makes it that much nicer. And I don't mean to be disrespectful by calling it wealth and not saying it's an investment. It sure can be, but when you look at it in terms of wealth that you count your wealth in terms of ounces and in terms of dollars, which really is best way to look at it, then when it does what it's supposed to do, whenever that does, it makes it that much easier to deal with the gyrations.
And then eventually you can get to the point where you're counting it in pounds, which makes you feel even better. So
Right.
I think that's fun. Okay, Andy, I got one last question for you. And I think this is a good one to kind of leave it on here. And it's one that we've danced around on many shows, but we haven't maybe really hit it around the BIS. But Toussaint Don says, will the gold be revaluated to pay off the world's debt to the BIS?
I think you could see gold being revalued. Yes, I do. I don't know if it will be done to pay off to the BIS, but I mean, look, BIS did reclassify gold as the only other tier one asset, and it is held in the gold revaluation account. You have had the Dutch central banker talk about it for 2 years. You are seeing Cynthia Loomis, the senator from Wyoming, talk about revaluing the price of gold. I think it's too hard to ignore. And in a system that is moving to gold backing, and that's why Jim Sinclair, God rest his soul, always said gold will go to a level no one thinks possible and will never come back down, as it will be pegged to a new system. Well, if indeed we already have acknowledgement that the BRICS have agreed in principle to a new settlement currency, which is 40% gold backed, if we realize that if Trump wins, his pick for the head of the Federal Reserve would be Judy Shelton, who's a gold bug advocate, a gold standard advocate, who talks about the only way you get people to trust us and buy our treasuries ever again is to have it redeemable in gold on a 30-year basis. Yeah, I mean, I think he understands you revalue gold to a level of $130,000, $40,000, $50,000. Why is that crazy? Bitcoin can be that. Why can't gold? And is it interesting that it seems like powers that be don't have a problem with us owning Bitcoin, but seem to not want us to own gold? I would just simply say that they could easily put it to that level, immediately devalue the dollar. It would create lots of inflation, but it's better than outright default. It's better than hyperinflation. Yeah, it would create inflation, but I mean, it would then allow us to have a balance sheet neutral to our liabilities with our assets. And maybe, just maybe, we'd be able to dig our way out at that point rather than having massive interest payments that are increasing exponentially every year as rates go higher, which will just destroy the government's ability to maintain its obligations. So I find it to be probably the most palatable solution. Revalue gold to a wickedly high level. Who's been buying all the gold? Oh yeah, the central banks. Are they going to bitch? Probably not, because it benefits them too. And in a system that is going to be tied to gold using blockchain technology to peg it, showing the mutability and the veracity, well, you want gold at a super high level. And they're only doing 40%. That's what the Swiss did for all the years that their currency was pegged. You still have monetary latitude. And at a really high level, with 60% ability to enact monetary policy, you have a form of prudence with that 40% tether. At a high enough level, it works. So, yes, if I had to guess, in a world of no guarantees, only probabilities, to me is a fairly good probability that they do revalue gold to a level that people would say is impossible. But who are the entities buying it all, and who's been bringing it all home? The central banks, backed by the BIS. What does the BIS do? They tell everyone it's tier one. And if you go back to 2017, when all the banks started bringing their gold back, doubling down on the amount of gold that they were buying in 2018, more than the 60 years previously combined, doubling that amount in 2019. And by the way, it's now tier one, says the BIS. Really? So you didn't tell them all to start doing that. Well, look at all the banks bringing their gold home now, over 40 of them. Look at the banks that are all buying it, all of them. And just about. And what is the one asset that basically every central bank in the world owns? That's gold. It would benefit everyone. In a world that has gone too far down the Keynesian rabbit hole of debt creation and inflation and just irresponsibility, I think it is a palatable solution, one that you know, it was one thing to hear the head of the Dutch National Bank talk about it. It's another thing to hear the senator from Wyoming acknowledge it. Roosevelt did it. What's to think it won't happen again? I wouldn't be surprised at all if it does.
No, I see that happening too, Andy. I mean, if you think the system's starting to fall apart, why would you not print more fiat and then buy something that's real and
Well,
start
that's what
stacking up?
they're all doing.
Why would
That's
you not
what
do
they
that?
are all doing. And that's why you see all of these countries letting the treasuries roll off.
Yep.
They've sold $1 trillion in treasuries and bought $1 trillion in gold. Is there any coincidence? I don't think so. And that's exactly what they've been doing for a long time. And you look at a country like China taking that trade imbalance and allowing them to mine gold uneconomically for years. They didn't care what it cost to pull it out of the ground if it was priced at $500 an ounce, but cost 800 to mine it in a form that was not very economical. What do they care? They take that trade imbalance and they think in terms of decades instead of in terms of hours, like we think of. And you know, people who are pissed off if something isn't announced miss the point altogether. That's what the West. That's the Achilles heel of the West. Their impatience and their inability to see the big picture. That falls right into the hands of those that have seen the big picture for a long time and are using that against us until they finally pull the trigger. And is that this week? Don't know. But the trend of them accumulating and repatriating gold is undeniable. And same thing with silver, and same thing with all sorts of the world's commodities, from rare earths to base metals and soft commodities. This is a system moving towards who's got the commodities makes the rules. And either you see it or you don't. Don't let your emotions get the better of you. See it for what it is. And that to me is a trend that is unmistakably moving in that direction.
I agree. So I see gold going higher, guys. I see the ratio snapping. It's basically economic physics, if I can use that term. You have a pendulum. It swings one way, it's going to swing the other way. So for me, that's what I'm doing. I can't tell you to buy it. Can't give you that financial advice to do that. But what I can tell you is that that's what I'm doing. Andy's sharing what he's doing too. So Andy, I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
Man, it's always a pleasure. And I just want to say one last thing.
Yep,
you know what? If I could be wrong about all of this, I'd be glad to be. Honestly,
okay.
I would love nothing more than the country to stand back on its 2 feet, to see all of the things that are crazy around this country that I talk about all the time. I'd like to see them go away, and I'd like to see this country experience another 100 years of tremendous prosperity and freedom. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I go down as the guy was wrong on YouTube, because I got 3 kids and I'd rather them have a good life than be right. And unfortunately, you know, I have the courage to go out here and say this shit when most people don't. And that's the truth. And maybe it's stupidity, but I'm trying to do my part. And hopefully, even if you don't agree with me, you'll open your eyes and do your own due diligence instead of listening to people like me talk and not really letting it sink in. Use it as an incentive to dig yourself. Download the white paper on the unit. Download the white paper on Enbridge. Start digging, reading other sources of news rather than anything that's mainstream, and do your own homework, because you know it's important. And I if nothing else, if I wake one person up at a time, that's great. But I hope I'm wrong, and I will publicly say that, because you know I got kids. I haven't met my grandkids. They haven't been born yet, not for a while. But I want to someday, and I want to be in a country that you know has the potential for prosperity and, more importantly, safety. So for what it is worth, that is the truth. But unfortunately, I don't think I am. At least I've said this stuff for 4 years, and about 98% of it has happened. Not exactly like I said it would, but there's 4,000 YouTube videos out there proving it. And that's why Jake says I'm a time traveler, which kind of blows my mind. I never thought of me being anything other than someone who just tries to be authentic. But it's spooky, actually, when I think about those things that I was saying when everyone said you're out of your mind. Why would that ever happen? It will never happen. And it has happened. So the last thing that hasn't happened is that final push away from the dollar. And I hope it doesn't happen. But if I had to bet, if I had a gun to my head, I'd say, yeah, it's going to happen. Don't know when, don't know how, may not be this week, but it's coming. And if you are not a contrarian, you're damn well bound to be a victim. And I do believe that. So do your homework, and don't rely on any dum-dum like me to tell you what's going on.
So there you have it. So Andy, we had a great participation today. I'm going to do a couple more giveaways here after we let you go.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I look forward to chatting with you next week, and we can talk about what's going on with the BRICS meeting and
that sounds great.
And pretty soon what happened with the election. So this is getting to that point, the end of the toilet paper roll. I'm going to see the cardboard in a few minutes and see exactly what is there. So anyways, I look forward to picking up where we left off, and I appreciate you, brother.
Just another call out for you. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach Andy?
Info@Miles Franklin. Any questions, anything that you want from me answered directly, info@milesfranklin.com. Put your phone number, check your spam. A lot of times it goes to spam. You want our price list that is not printed online, that's ultra competitive, to say the least, if not really competitive. Reach out, or any questions that you've heard on this or that you didn't get a chance to get answered here, feel free to send it to us, info@milesfranklin.com.
Awesome.
Stacking Surfer sent me.
Thank you very much. So guys, stay tuned here. We're going to do a couple quick giveaways.
Take it easy.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
See you, brother.
All right. So put a 1 in the chat if you guys want to do some giveaways, or if we should wait until next week. Put a 2 if you want to wait until next week. I'm just curious. Anybody want to wait 2 weeks? Wait a week, I should say. So next week we'll have Andy on again, same time on Tuesday. The BRICS will start meeting on, I think Tuesday is the 22nd. Let me just double check. Yep. So they're meeting the 22nd to the 24th. So we may end up hearing in the news that they are officially, giving a date for the BRICS unit currency. They may have a different name for it. They may not say anything about it at all. They may talk about it, but not have a date. So there's a lot of things that could happen. So I wouldn't go crazy trying to anticipate everything that might happen out of that. But I think the philosophy is what Andy tells you a little bit more on, which is this. Things are going to continue to happen little by little by little, and then all at once. And when that all at once comes, you're not going to have the ability to decide, okay, I want it now. It's going to be too late. The prices will probably be out of your reach. I can't tell you that's going to happen for sure, but that's what I'm seeing from the data. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of other people. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And it does concern me because I've got young kids like Andy does. I shouldn't say young. I've got kids getting started with their life that are 18 in college. And I feel like I need a lot more time to get prepared for that anyway. So, that's going to come. But let's do some giveaways here. I think we've got a few ones in here. You guys want to do some right now. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, here's what we're going to do. I did not have time in between my day job and this stream here today. So go ahead and start putting this in, guys, and we'll pull it up. So you just need to enter that in once, and that'll enter you in for the drawing. I didn't get a chance to pull stuff out of my safe yet, but what should we do? I think we'll do 3 gold backs again for today. So I want to thank you guys for coming out and hitting that thumbs up. It does help wake up these algorithms to get these shows out there. So much of what we do on YouTube is dependent on whether YouTube wants to show it to people or not, which is kind of crazy. All right, so we're going to say #flip, and I'm going to show you guys. We're going to start this off. We've got 34 people in there. Let me share my screen so you guys can see it. All right. And then I've got some other cool videos that'll be coming out this week as well, guys. I've got a video that'll be coming out on the Holy Lance. It's a collectible coin that just came out. I was able to win one off Instagram. So that video will be coming out tomorrow. And then in addition to that, I went down with OC Stacker to the beach, and we met up with, I'm going to forget his call name on here. He was in here earlier. Let me see if I think I saved his thing on here. Just a second.
Born hunting.
Yeah, Born Hunting. And he has a metal detector. So we did some metal detecting on the beach too. All right. So we've got 531 people in here right now, and we only have 47 of you that are entered for the drawing. So I just want to make sure that that's what you guys want to do. Maybe a lot of you are watching where you can't enter that in, but if you live in the United States, in Canada, I can send that out to you. If not, we can try to send it further, but I think it's going to get kind of hard and maybe cost prohibitive to do it. But go ahead and put that in. I'm going to give you guys just another minute to see if we can get it up higher. But gold backs are great. I don't have one in front of me, but they're really cool. I use them for tipping, and you know, people have had fun with them. They like holding them. I've even tried to use them to buy at stores, and usually it fails here in California, but people look at it and they think it's pretty darn cool. So, all right, we're up to 49. Let's see if we can get one more to 50, and we'll go ahead and run it. All right, we're at 50. Okay, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and run it. There we go. And we're drawing this. And so this is going to be for, we're going to do it 3 times, and this will be for a 1 gold back. All right. Rick Bruce Roche. Okay, so what you need to do is email me, stackingsurfer@gmail.com. Send me your name. So Rick Bruce Roche, put that on there. If you've got a different name you want me to mail it to, put that on there as well. So put your YouTube name on, put your name on and your address so I can mail that to you. In addition to that, you've also got to be a subscriber. So I am checking that. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button and also the bell icon so you don't miss our next live streams that are coming out too, and videos. We're going to also have some other great interviews coming up in the month of November as well. All right, I'm going to go ahead and draw again for our second one. And then if you can let me know if you were first, second, or third would be great too. Oh, look at this. Greg Downtown. Or Downton, I should say. I don't have my glasses on right now. I can't see all that well. So send me your information as well. Congratulations. And we'll do another drawing here too. Let's see, who is it going to be? I don't have a fancy magic wheel like some of our friends out there, but we'll go with this right now. Trenard, say that right. Tenarg the Clown. So go ahead and send me your information too, and we'll get those out to you guys. So next week we'll have Andy on. Maybe we'll have some new updates from the BRICS. Maybe we'll already have some news out from them, which will be pretty cool. Mods, if one of you could put in Andy's link to his channel tonight, he'll be live. And he's on it at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. And it's great. You can kind of see his house. He's got some really cool decorations up on the walls. And it's a really kind of down-to-earth conversation, similar to what we have here. But they've got some great dynamics on that chat too. So it's pretty fun. What I'd love to have you guys do too is send me questions at stackingsurfer@gmail.com. Send me questions that you have for Andy for the next show. I like to kind of build my shows around what you guys have questions for. We had quite a few of them today, so we wanted to get into those a little earlier than we normally do. And we weren't able to get to all of them. So I try to, hold on to as many of those questions as I can. You can also email Andy, info@milesfranklin.com. And just tell him Stacking Surfer sent you. In there, also put in your question that you have for him. If you want a pricing sheet, you can get that from him as well. And anyway, hope you guys had a great night. And hopefully this live stream was helpful for you guys. So until next time, peace out and see you.